다행이다. 뒤에 가서 현대나이다 그냥.
We will begin with the opening prayers.
Chedan raji kana madu chedan nandan be cheso jebana Vindra shiru gyoba nizene Tönsan li she domdir soan Dandengi düman tamji bayon sengi shilin chonsen Dongme meba gongbe pichon Tebe paru sendir soan Sende chanjuru yinbe webe Se si samin brai nine radote Chelo seba chebe namdaraji Kume chenpa dendir soan Chambe loji ninji dongshu Tanrawa meba engi jona brada Dome gyoda jelada gyoshi Meda ngebra sindri soa Nyemo ngelo geji medon shi Kati shaya nyembu chulunchi Kewe nganzu sambo medon we Shinyin penzi gandri soa Sosura nyarjane jange sosura jebe shiragi Shiro jesu jobra mishe bange de tambra jete soa Chembro chala zishi jishi Loi meno daba nange sanjirane Gela jove lodre gebe de Nyosong ora zede soa Tedra yende jelege kanto yende jebe Chashi jebe lusun tende Bagama baye gomba zonje sho Ho sangye jedan soye shonama la chanjo Ando dane yesus Tage junye gibe sanaman ye rola ben Sangye rubra jo sangye jedan soye shanaman Chanjo bado dane yazut Tage junye gibe sanaman ye rola ben Sangye rubra jo sangye jedan soye shanaman Chanjo bado dane gyozut Dagi jingi gibi sanama rola ben Sangye rubra jo Chanze wanan chiji chabat Jizo yera guji sewa Gewa jose dagi jizaba tamje dang Chanju jemo sashi buji joji mendo Rira venishi ninde gemba Sangye jindo midi buwai Droge nanda jinla jebra jo Simje namye samba Loye jera jida Shizhon de monde bayi chege golo golo so.
어서 오늘은 나가야 가지는 배결을 로가 로버즈가 대단한 점마다 뭐냐 답변을 이제 알아나는 면제 아무도 예전에 저저 상해선으로 이제 대외기가 봐 대단히 이제 답변을 이제 하나 주요는 이제 되나 이제 로만 잡아 가서 되는데 왜 쉬게 잡아 이제 냠바도 받는데 가야게 나로는 이제 로나나 왜야게 로군이라 해서 뭐 삼재게 도다게 저도 선비스 세계를 예르지도 총하시 비서 이시겨도 되는 도전저 라무라자게 장점이 마로나 가나니 마셔라 대바가지 저 기부대라 상스 시제가라 예를 영원전 제베어던 주제는 뭐 예외된 바고는 선서 그 유를 못 살아서서 반대로 저상으로 원소라만 뭐 기물군이 주는 지배주의는 칠레군이 잡으러 온 주주점이 전을 내줘지죠. 그 외에는 다음에 도저히 경험하는지 반대사람 말은 뭐 시제에서는 남자 사람이 소름 거리라는 인물을 대주주라는 놈이 미유도 지셔라서 내 반대사람 말은 뭐 다계적으로 배면 되죠. 그런 신배고는 저 구성도 경우로 자도서 다 남에게 상물이야 도마라 자시베에게는 섬주셔야 접지도
First of all, I'd like to wish you all my auspicious greetings. I saw this on the internet the other day. There's an Akon Rinpoche Dharma Center in the nation of Congo, and they're listening to the teaching every day. So I saw a picture of this. And so you've all, it's I'm really delighted that all of you have made a small Dharma center there and are practicing the Dharma. And I'm taking interest in all of you. I've been taking interest in what you're already doing, and you also recite the Tara praises really wonderfully. And you recite it in Tibetan. And your pronunciation is really good. When you recite in Tibetan, what I think, I can tell immediately where you've got to in the text. And so a lot of Tibetans are sharing with each other the videos of you reciting, and they praise what you're doing. And so you've put a lot of effort into making a Dharma center and starting a Dharma center practicing the Dhamma, and so I'm particularly delighted about that. And so I'd like to offer my particular welcomes to you today. And especially Akon Rinpoche, when he passed away, when Akon Rinpoche passed away suddenly, I was also really very sad. When I was young, before I was enthroned as the Karmapa, I met Akon Rinpoche. And so I knew him well from the time I was little. And after I was enthroned, I met Akon Rinpoche a few more times. And Rinpoche was not allowed to come to India, so I didn't meet him after I went to India. I did have a quick meeting with him when I was in America, but I didn't have a chance to sit down and relax with him. But he passed away very suddenly, and that was a really great blow to all of his students. But Rinpoche himself, has helped a lot of poor and disadvantaged people. And he helped over 300 schools in Tibet. And so he went a lot of work in Tibet. And it is my responsibility to locate Rinpoche's tulku. And I will try my hardest to find him soon, but I'd like in particular offer you my greetings and let you know that I'm rejoicing in the work you have done, and thank you. Actually, in your country, you probably mostly speak French, right? And so I should say merci beaucoup. How do you say it? Hard to say. So first of all, to begin today, I thought I should begin by explaining the fourth stanza of the praise he searched thoroughly. I go through a stanza every day, and so the fourth stanza of praise he searched thoroughly. The fourth stanza of the fourth stanza is according to the annotated commentary by the fifth Shamar. The meaning is a topic, or is the outline. It is about how he was not attached to this life. The root text reads, he realized from his heart, not just in words, that this life's wealth and fame are devoid of meaning. He exemplified revulsion and a lack of craving and recalled the futility. To him I pray. So I don't think I need to explain every word. But the main point of this, the meaning of it, all of the good things, the happiness and friends and so forth of samsara, the three realms of samsara, whatever they are unnecessary and pointless. And by remembering that, you do not crave or desire them. But instead, you should be content with merely ordinary resources such as food and clothing. This is really very important. Now, this is the same meaning as the fourth good deed that I described yesterday. So one thing I should say, before in the past, someone said, someone said that is the reason why we are suffering in samsara is that we are deceived by all the good things of samsara, and we should be in attention. So one person, what he thought was, he didn't understand what the guru said, but he thought about the good things of samsara, and he thought that he understood that the good things of samsara are bad. And when he understood, now he had a friend who's named Sipe Punsoko, the same name. And so I said, this is the person who's been giving me problems, this person named Good Things. And he's the one who's been harming me. And after the teaching ended, he got up and he went off to kill his friend Sipe Punsok, or Good Things of Samsara. Before he said even a single word to his friend, he punched him and beat him really hard. No, the Good Things of Samsara, this guy names his spirit Samsara. Someone comes up to him without, I think it comes up and starts beating him. He had no idea what was going on. Later on, he thought, oh, what happened? I didn't do anything, so what happened? Later when he was realizing that this person, he made a mistake. He thought that when he said the Good Things of Samsara, that was a person's name. and thought that there's some sort of good things in samsara outside of himself. So maybe this is like a joke. It's something we can laugh about. But from another point, there's nothing to laugh about. Actually, it's a really serious point that we need to think about. All the problems we have, all the difficulties we have, we think that it comes from from outside of ourselves. We look outside of ourselves. It's the same as the guy as looking for a person named Sipi Punsor, good things samsara, and beating them. Basically, the root of our suffering, the root of our problems, is not something that we can search for outside. It's something we need to look inside ourselves. And in order to look inside, we need the eye of prajna. Generally, when we look at something that's right in front of our face, if we want to look at our own face, we can't use our two eyes aren't much help. We have to look in a mirror, otherwise we can't see. In order to see our faults or our actual situation, we need the eyes of prajna. Our physical eyes are not benefit. If we have that eye of prajna, then only then can we see our situation or our problems. And this is something we need to keep in our mind. So the point we've come to now is, yesterday we spoke about how the king of Zhang invited Mikyu Dorje and how he showed him great respect and reverence. The king of Zhang showed him great respect and reverence, and also how Mikyu Dorje accepted to go to the country of Zhang and so forth. And so I've already explained those deeds and actions. Now, today, when Mikyu Dorje was 14 years old, an envoy came from the Emperor of China, bringing an invitation letter to go to China. Now, at that time, so now the situation at that time and whether he went to China later, I will discuss later. But the Ming emperor sending envoys to invite Mikyu Dorje to China was not just like some sort of a luck or some sort of circumstance. It was not that. The Ming emperors had also sent decrees and offerings or envoys bearing them to the Karmapas prior to the 8th. In particular, the 5th Karmapa, Deshin Shepa, actually went to China himself. He met the third emperor of the Ming dynasty, the Emperor Yongle, and performed many miraculous deeds. So I think that in order to understand, in order so you can understand the situation with Mikyu Dorje receiving the invitation, I would describe the history, the historical background. So I thought I should speak in brief about Karmapa Deshin Shekpa's travels to China and the relations between other Karmapas and the Ming emperors. But primarily, I will speak about the relations between Karmapa Deshin Shekpa and the Ming Emperor Yongle. So there are a lot of people who say that the meeting between the Karmapa and the Chinese emperor was had a lot of a political background, or some people say that it is related to how the Karmapa was given a title and a rank that would be considered important by most worldly people. But the way it's described in the reliable histories of the Karma Kamsang, and the way the pastor, the master, thought about it, when Deshin Shekpa met the Ming emperor, the external appearance of the meeting was not so important. Instead of, there was what is the, in terms of the Dharma, what is the purpose and what was the necessary? And they have a profound understanding of that in Dharmic terms. And so I'd like to take the reliable histories of the Karma Kamsang and the intentions of the Karmapas as the basis for my discussion today. Now, so first to give a brief introduction to Karmapa Deshin Shekpa. So I mentioned it earlier. I think if I repeat it, it will not be redundant. So the fifth Karmapa Deshin Shekpa was born in the region of Nyangdam. So it's in a place called Nyangdam. Now, where is Nyangdam in terms of in the present day geography? It is in the in Nyangdin, Gombo Jiangdan town in Kongpu, Jiangda County. So his father was Guru Rinchen and Barasa, and his mother Barasa Laki. He was born in the mill woodrat here at sunrise on the 18th day of the 6th lunar month. So I don't need to go through that in too much detail now. Now, who was it who recognized the Rilpa Dorje? Who was it who recognized him as the incarnation of the previous Karmapa Rilpa Dorje? It was Khenchen Lodro Rinpoche Gyatsen. And his main teacher was the second Shama Rinpoche, Kacha Wongpo. And who did he take go forth with and take full ordination? It was with the Khenchen Sunam Sampo of Gendun Gang, who was said to be an emanation of one of the 16 arhats, Aquila. And so he probably took these vows when he was full ordination, when he was 19 years old. At the time, there were over 80 monks in the assembly when he took the vows. So in Tibetan history, it says in the histories that in terms of Tibetan ordinations, this is an ordination with the largest Sangha and the most pure Sangha. And Deshin Shekpa also received many Dharma teachings from his Khenpo. And so he became like a Lama of Deshin Shekpa. But Khenchen Sunam Sampo himself had actually greater faith in the Karmapa Deshin Shekpa than other students, and praised him very highly, and wrote praises of the Deshin Shekpa. Then Khenchen Rinchen Pa was invited to the encampment from Sangpo. Now Sangpo, as I mentioned, is the first, I mentioned it the other day, it was the first Shadra. So the glorious Sangpo was like the Tibetan Nalanda. And so there was the Kashipa Rinchen Pa. So Kashipa, and the Kashipa means that he had four words. This means that he had passed the debate exam in four. He had passed the test in four different topics, and so he's called the Kashipa, or four texts. And so this Kashipa was invited to the encampment, and the Karmapa studied the scriptures in depth with him. Likewise, Deshin Shekpa also followed the Gurus Gui Gompo Rinchen Pal, Khenchen Gyatsen Pal, Khenchen Yunten Lodra, Enkya Sangye Wonchu. So he did also have other gurus in addition to Kacho Wompo. Now, when he was 21 years old, the third Ming Emperor, Yongle, invited him to China. And he was in China for over 3 years. Now, if you look at it in terms of the actual time, it was probably 2 years in total that he was there, but it took place over the course of 3 years. Now, Deshin Shekpa only lived to the age of 32. He died at a young age. And his collected works have no more than one slim volume. But the works we have really elegant compositions in a very chiming style and different, really particular style, according to Karma Trinlepa. Now, when he went forth, his Kempo gave him the name Chupal Sangpo. So the Kempo with whom he went forth gave him that name. But the Ming Emperor gave him the name Rulai Dabao Fawang, which, if translated into Tibetan, is Deshin Shekpa Rinpoche Chigi Gyalpo, or in English, Tathagata Precious King of Dharma in English. And so this is what is called in the this is how described or translated in the old translation. Now, you could also translate it as the Deshin Shekpa, the king of the true Dharma, but we will take it as it is translated in the old manuscripts. And so that, since he's known by the name Deshin Shekpa, and so he became very well known as Deshin Shekpa in China. Now, the year he passed away was the female sheep year in 1415. So 1415 on the 15th day of the 18th lunar month at the Potala Palace. And that is where he passed away. So the Potala, it is the Potala Palace in Lhasa, but it wasn't. But at that time, the Potala Palace was not as large and not as elaborate as the Potala Palace. It was sort of, it was like a retreat place, a solitude place where there were few people. And so that is where he passed away. So next, the reasons or purpose for Yongle Emperor to invite Deshin Shekpa, the main reason was, so here, actually I should show you Emperor Yongle. So I speak about him all the time. I ought to show you a picture of Emperor Yongle. So Emperor Yongle was the third emperor, Huangdi, of the Ming dynasty. And his actual name was Zhuoli. Yongle. It was called Yongle in the old manuscripts. And the reason he's called that, it is the name that he was given in the year that he ascended to the throne. It is not his actual name. So on the side there's a larger picture. And so that is an old one that he was written at that was drawn during his time. And this one on the left is a 3D image made by a computer in contemporary times. And I think that one makes it easy for us to see what kind of a person. So that's why I've put it here. Now, the reason why the Ming Emperor invented, the reason why the Emperor invited him was described in a Chinese manuscript called The Tales of the Four Brothers. And so what's written in there is that, so last night, I translated it last night. So I can't say that it's 100% right. I was really busy and I rushed through it to translate it last night. So I rushed to translate it last night and this morning, but still, but still it's like my brain is kind of like is like a tingling. It's like warm or hot. So I don't know that it's actually quite right, but I think that pretty much the meaning is like this. Now, what is written in this manuscript is one Huangdi. So this is was the emperor, was the lord of the Minor King. So he was the before he was the emperor. He was in the minor the kind. He learned of a guru named Karmapa in Uzang, who was different than any other. In the first year of Yonglu's reign, he sent the inner minister Gompo Sherab with a decree to invite him. He arrived 5 years later in the 12th month. Even the emperor came to welcome, but instead of prostrating kneeling, he merely joined his palms. A feast was prepared in the Huakai audience hall. He gave him gifts beyond number, including a 10,000 song of gold, 2,000 song of silver, and ritual items. He made careful preparations equal to Junwang's. So what this is saying is that before he became emperor, he realized that there was a guru in Uzang who was different than any other. And after he became emperor, he sent the inner minister who was a eunuch, a Tibetan eunuch actually. And he sent this Gompo Sherab to invite him. And on the way, he went to see the Karmapa. So it took 5 years from his departure to see the Karmapa to come back. And so he came. And so on the 12th, and this is the 12th month, this means the 12th lunar month in the Chinese calendar, he arrived with Nanjing with the Karmapa. So at that time, the capital was Nanjing. And so at that time, the emperor came out to welcome, but when he welcomed, he didn't prostrate or kneel. He really joined his brothers. And so at that point in the Huakai audience hall, so the Huakai is the name of the audience hall. So he gave him a lot of offerings. And so he said, make careful preparations equal to Junwang's. So Junwang at that point, there are many kings at that time. There are many Wangs, means kings, the Jun kings. And so he gave him the same right for same welcome ceremonies that would be given to a king of the equal of Junwang's. And what we can understand from this is that before the king, the Karmapa, he had heard of the Karmapa's fame before he became emperor. And later, after he ascended to the throne as emperor, he had a queen named Huang Ho. And Huang Ho was she was from the Shu king. And she had a lot of faith in the Dharma. And so she encouraged him. She said, before you said you should invite, now you're the emperor. So please invite him. She encouraged him to. And so for reasons such as this, he sent Gompo Sherab, the minister Gompo Sherab, as an envoy to invite him back. And also with a Chinese minister and carrying a decree from the king to invite him. Now, in this decree, what is written is that, I don't need to say everything, but the brief meeting to explain it to you in brief, this decree is recorded in the Feast of Scholars by Pao Zutla Chengwa. So as it says, I, the king, I have heard of your name before, and I was in the north, and thought I should invite you then. Now that I've ascended to the throne as emperor, I would like to bring the peace to the kingdom. And I'm thinking for a long time. And I've thought for a long time that the bringing good fortune to all people would means that it shouldn't be just me, but it should be everyone should you and I should do this together. So in the past, Shakyatrungpa showed great kindness for sentient beings and benefited them. And you are inseparable from the Buddha's intentions, as I should come to China and spread the teachings of the Buddhism in China, benefit the land of China, benefit the kingdom. And so you should do as I should say. And something and I also had my father, the Emperor Hongwu, and my mother Hong Taiyu have passed away, and it's been a long time. I've thought that I should do something to repay their kindness, but I haven't found a way to repay their kindness. So now you are actually very skilled in means of activity, and you are inseparable from the Buddha. So I would like to invite you to do, in order to do a ritual to benefit the deceased. That is like the inscription rituals we often do, or the purification inscription rituals we often do. So please come quickly to do a ritualize. And so when this letter arrived, Deshin Shepa accepted to go to China, and he gradually went to China. Now I won't describe all the events that happened on the way, but in brief, when Deshin Shepa went to China, there's quite a lot about the meeting between Deshin Shepa and Emperor Yongle in the Chinese history. There are probably over 20,000 words about this in the Chinese histories. This is probably the most that is written about any Tibetan Lama in the old Chinese historical records. During the time of the Yuan dynasty, the Mongol dynasty, the Chögyal Papa had done a lot of activity on the benefit of sentient beings in China, and there's not as much about him in there. Likewise, in the Feast of Scholars by Pao Zuo, there are very detailed accounts of Deshin Shepa's trip to see the Chinese emperor. So in brief, in the Fire Pig year of 1407, on the 12th, the month, the fourth day of the first month in the Tibetan calendar, or in the Chinese, it is in the 12th month of the 4th year of Yongle's reign. He went to the capital. So this is Nanjing. So at that time, Nanjing was the capital. Nowadays, it is Beijing. So first, at the beginning, the Ming dynasty's capital was Nanjing, and later they moved it to Beijing. So at that time, Deshin Shepa went to Nanjing. So the this situation of Karmapa Deshin Shepa the Karmapa arriving in Nanjing really inspired everyone, and so everyone, young and old, male and female, went to look at this. It was like the great show. Now there's a really elaborate welcoming procession for him. And including this were the princes, the sons of the emperors, and also many great people. Not only that, there were Chinese bendes or 10,000 over 10,000 Chinese monks, and over 30 elephants wearing all sorts of different jewels. And so this is the history is recorded in the histories about how Deshin Shepa was welcomed. Now, the meeting between Deshin Shepa and the Emperor Yongle, at that time, Deshin Shepa was only 22 or 23 years old, and so it was a very young Tibetan Lama, and the Emperor Yongle was already 47 years old, and so in terms of politics, he had great experience, and that is how he became the emperor. And the other one was this young Lama who was only 23. The other was this very experienced person. Another way of looking at it is thinking one was a Dharma leader and one was a political leader. And so during the Yuan or the Mongol dynasty, Dogon Chögyal Papa went and spread the Tibetan Buddhism and Tibetan culture in China overall, but especially in the Mongolian areas. In particular, since prior to that, before that, the Mongolians had no writing system, so Dogon Chögyal Papa also made a writing system, and also the Korean alphabet. uh, was actually was an actual example used. So the Korean writing system used the old Mongolian writing system developed by Chögyal Pakpa as its basis. And so now the basis of that was actually Tibetan. So there's a lot of there are a lot of connections between them. Now, when Desheng Shekpa went to China, this is a time when the Ming Dynasty was primarily ruling over the Han, or the Chinese people. And so it's after then, I think there's a great connection between the Chinese and the Tibetan, because the reason we can say this is that that his visit had a great influence in China, because even 200 years after Desheng Shekpa had gone to China, there was a Chinese pilgrim named Xu Shake. And he's someone who actually is mentioned in all the textbooks in Chinese history. He's a very, very famous person. He went to the region of Zhang, and when he came close to Zhang, then naturally what he thought was, this is the path that the precious Dharma king traveled on in the past, isn't it? And the reason why I thought about this is because what we can understand is that from the Desheng Shekpa went to the Ming, the Ming Emperor, the Ming Dynasty, it had a great influence that meant people knew about it and were educated about this. And so this is what that shows us. Now, at that time, when Desheng Shekpa and the Chinese emperor first met, what were the amazing signs that happened? These aren't described in the written histories, but the oral histories are recorded in A Feast of Scholars by Pao Tzu Chengwa. And said that the emperor said that the Karmapa is sent to different people. He has clairvoyance, and so he'll probably come prepared. And so the Chinese emperor had a clockwise turning conch that he hid, and then he went out to it hid in his robes, and he went out to meet the Karmapa. And the moment he met the Karmapa, he offered him the clockwise turning conch. And at that same time, then Desheng Shekpa also from inside his within his robes took another clockwise turning right conch, and he gave that to the emperor. And when he did this, then the Chinese emperor was like amazed. Oh, he's got something, doesn't he? He was like astounded. And so there are these two conchs. There's the one offered by the Chinese emperor, one by the, and so these two were plated in gold, and then once more again offered to Desheng Shekpa. So later, these two were used in the Gondola shrine, and so so it said that these were included in the Gondola shrine on the right hand of the statue. Now, but this isn't in the written histories, but it is in the oral histories. Now, at that time, when the Chinese emperor went to welcome the Karmapa went to welcome him. See, the ministers tried to stop him, saying that the emperors shouldn't go to welcome people. This is recorded in Chinese history. There's a history called the Da Zhongqi. And so what this says is that on the 6th month, when the Western monk Precious Dharma King came, the emperor thought he should go to welcome. But the minister Sha Yunji tried strenuously to stop him. And Yunji said, this should be done. So if you go and welcome him, this will destroy all of the protocols of respect. And then the king emperor said, king said to Yun She, prostrate to me. Is you weak? You are said the emperor said you have to. So there's a monk coming to them. The finance minister, really insisted that you must not go and welcome, and said this to the emperor. What he said is that these people from outer regions, when they come to the country, they're like just completely surprised or amazed when they come. And so they should follow the protocol for paying respect to the ministers and emperors. And if the emperor himself goes down to them and shows them such a great respect, then the people underneath underneath him will have to do even more to that. And so there'll be no way that people can pay such respect. And when the emperor said that, when the emperor was a little bit upset, and so he said, "Are you going to do as in Hanyu is described?" So the Hanyu is an old Chinese history, and so like this, there are different. So they one day they went to a different audience, a different one than the normal. So it's one on the side, and then when Deshin Shekpa was there, as I said before, I said the emperor said to him, "Okay, Deshin Shekpa is here, so you should prostrate to him." And so the minister said, "I'm just a weak minister, but my rank is that I'm above all of the minor kingdoms." And so if someone comes from like some faraway remote place, then forget about them. If I prostrate to them, I think a disgrace for me as a great minister to prostrate him. So even if it costs my life, I'm not going to prostrate. I can't do what you say. And so at that time, the emperor laughed a bit. Someone with such a backward way of thinking is what the king thought. In any case, it was the king treated him with such respect that even the ministers are totally described. And that's what this story shows us. In any case, when Deshin Shekpa was in Nanjing, they had the Chinese New Year, and so they had a very festive New Year. So this is during the Tibetan, the Chinese 12th year, and so then the next month is the first year, and so it's the Chinese Losar or Chinese New Year, and so at that time they had a very elaborate, excellent New Year's ceremony, in particular and so he showed Deshin Shekpa great respect, and so they put him at the front of the left row. Now this is we have to talk to it, but in China it's different. In Tibet we always put we talk about the right row and the left, and we consider the right row as being higher and the left row as being lower. But in China, it's not always like this. But in this time, you need to sit on the restaurant. But so generally, when Chinese protocol, when whoever meets the emperor is supposed to prostrate. But during that time, the emperor ordered that not only would Deshin Shekpa not have to prostrate, but even the great lamas in his retinue would not have to prostrate either. And then on the 15th day of the second month, and so now becomes the second month, and from that time on, following the king's order, the primary reason why the emperor had invited the Deshin Shekpa was that his father and mother had passed away, and in order to repay their kindness and so in that time when they first established the Ming Dynasty, many people had been killed in the wars, and so also for to purify all the obscurations for all of the deceased. And so from the 15th day of the second month, they went to the Lingu Temple. So for his two parents, for the soldiers who died in the most, and also um, all the living people, the Karmapa made made the Jiao Jiatso mandala, and then they also had 20 other. They divided the Sangha into 12 groups, and they into 12 and did the rituals. Now there are also 20,000 Chinese monks, and so in brief, there was a very large and elaborate ceremony. Now, on the very first day, the emperor himself came, gave offerings to everyone who was doing there, and for each of the 12 different mandalas, just as we offer katas these days, he offered a silken robe to each of them, that the emperor himself offered these to the mandalas. And so, starting on the fifth of the month, on the 5th day of the second, until the 18th of the second month, they did the ritual for the sake of the deceased. And the emperor and the empress came every day to the company. They received empowerments, and that is how they did it. And the other lamas also did the purification rituals. And so next, what I'd like to show, you what this is this is the Lingu Temple. So this is the Lingu temple described in the old. And so that's it. They're called the monasteries De. So this is what it is. So Lingu is a monastery. And so this is where Deshin Shekpa stayed when he was in Nanjing. It seems that Deshin Shekpa was offered this after he left. And so this became a Karmakaji monastery. So until later times, this is the Lingu Gompa, and there are also a few Karmapa monasteries at the Wutai Shan, the Wutai Mountain, and there are also some Karmakaji monasteries during the Mongol time, the Tatuoli and so forth. And so these are all maintained and taken care of by the Great Encampment. And so there was at that time they recorded it. The members of the Great Encampment recorded in their histories the monasteries have visited. So at that point, this time we can only see the external thing. We cannot see. But at that time, so now it's not the same. There used to be a stupa inside of it, but it's no longer. Now it is more like a museum. So Deshin Shekpa, so this is the place where Deshin Shekpa conducted all of the grand rituals. Another thing I'd like to share with you. There is a text called the Wondrous Decree, which is kept in the library of the Tibetan Autonomous Region. And so this drawing, what this shows is, this describes the many wondrous events that occurred when Karmapa Deshin Shekpa visited Nanjing. So those days there was no taking pictures and making videos or anything like that. And so that people in later generations could know about the wondrous events that happened when Deshin Shekpa visited. He took a list of what happened. So he took the list of what happened from the 5th day to the 18th day of the second month, and what happened from the 3rd to the 18th of the third month. And so he wrote all of the events that occurred, and they drew paintings. And so the painting I'm showing is not the actual paintings and stuff, but so later I have a painting master from Taiwan, and he took that as an example and he copied it. And so in the painting, the paintings that were described in Chinese and Tibetan and Mongolian and Uyghur and 5 or 6 different letters. Later, when we were copying it, we couldn't find anyone who could write the other alphabets. It's because we couldn't read them. We didn't have the facilities. So my Chinese painting master wrote the Chinese, and I wrote the Tibetan. And so this drawing is probably 50 or 60 meters long, probably 50 meters long. This is a painting of each of the all the events that happened on each of the days. It's like a diary. So on the 3rd day of the 2nd month, the 3rd day. 3rd month, the Daga, the precious king of Dharma, the great Maitreya of the West, the peaceful Lord of Dharma, master of Buddhist teaching and Dharma, of all Buddhist teachings on earth. This title was given to the Karmapa. And so then all the decree, it was given also a degree and also a jade seal. I don't know what happened to the decree, but the jade seal is in a museum in the Tibetan Autonomous Region. And there's a description of this jade seal in the histories, in the Chinese histories. So this is described in the text of Shen Wei Lu. And what it says is that when the Western precious Dharma king arrived in the capital, the king gave him the jade stamp, and when they spoke about it, so this is made from a very precious material, and so we give it to the king. So when I think about this, the meaning of this text is that at that time, Karmapa Deshen Shepa had gone to China. And so the king had some really wonderful piece of jade, and so he thought he should make a steel out of it and give it to Deshen Shepa. And that time, there was another treasury minister, a really an important person, and maybe it's a different one than the treasury minister, but an important. And so he showed the emperor this piece of jade. And when the emperor showed this to the minister said that during the times of Nanjing, they primarily made the seals out of gold and silver. Now, there's no tradition of giving out seals made out of jewels, because the seals made of jewels are even higher rank or more valuable than those made out of the gold and silver. If you give them a jade seal, then everyone from these remote outlying countries will come just like Deshen Shekpa and say that you're not treating us as well as you treated Deshen Shekpa, and then they'll make problems for the Chinese emperor. And so many ministers said it to the emperor. I don't need to tell you about all this, but if you give them that sort of a siege, because the emperors, the Chinese emperors, used jade seals, right? So there's a question of the seals transcended passed down from the dynasties were all considered very important. They're made out of stone or out of jade. They were not made out of gold. Now, we Tibetans think that gold and silver can be considered the more valuable. So we think that they show a higher rank. But this seal, this is described in the issues around it are described in the Chinese histories. Now, at that time, the ministers said when they said you shouldn't give the jade seal, but he eventually did get it because we can actually see the seal. Not only that, he also gave the three Rinpoches who came with Kampa were given the title of Goshu, and among these was the first Situ Rinpoche. because one of Sutta Rinpoche's names is Kanting Tai Sutta, right? So Kanting is like Guanding. So he had a different rank. He had the title of Guanding Guoshi. So at that time, the reason it's called Guanding is that the Ming Emperor Yongle gave him that sin of the Guanding Guoshi, and so that is the reason why it's called the Kanting Tai Sutta. Now, as I mentioned before, at that time, there were many wondrous events that happened. Now, among the many different miraculous events, I used to kind of wonder about this. Was this just a pure vision that the Chinese emperor had, or was this that several people saw? Or was this something that everyone saw? It's like, we just didn't know what it was. But later, when you look at many of the Chinese history, the miraculous events that happened at that time were seen by everyone. Not only that, and some people, even what they said is, all those people come from Tibet or from the West, all the lamas from the West. They're showing us illusions. They're just fooling us by creating illusions. You're saying they're creating illusions. They saw something. When you see something and you say it's an illusion. If you don't say it's an illusion, if you didn't see it, right? So I think this is that everyone saw it. Now also, this is described in many Chinese histories, and one of them is the Guangming Congxing Lu. What it writes there is, in the second month, the monk from the Karmapa came, following the emperor's decree, conducted the rituals in the Lingus monastery, and they had rituals. There were many miracles. There were clouds and rains of flowers. So one day, and sometimes there were golden flowers that visible throughout the city, and many saw many clouds of the elders and so forth. So lights in the sky and so forth. These all could, so that all the ministers so they wrote so this is what is described here. So at that time, from the fifth day, the 18th day of the month, every day, there were amazing events that everyone saw. Not only that, all the ministers thought. So they didn't say this is the Karmapa's miracles, right? The ministers all said it was very important, very auspicious, and then also some ministers also wrote down a poem talking about the auspicious events, and they offered it to the emperor. And later, they made a Dharma melody, and there was a tradition of singing this melody in the emperor's palace. And so at that time, the Ming histories record very clearly the auspicious events and signs that happened, in particular when there was someone named Zhao Shen. So someone from there was an envoy from the Republic of Zhao Shen, he was named Ano Singh, and he arrived in Nanjing at that time. The reason he came at that time is that the Zhao Shen dynasty So it was at that time it was under the control, the power of the Ming dynasty, and so at that point, they sent an envoy to the communists, and so and that he described what happened, what did the emperor do, what happened in Nanjing, and he'd send them back to his country, and so this is his responsibility. And so the notes that he took, there's a description of what he's going to. This is called. That's what is called the history of the Thai country. So the 20 the Dharma king and 20 monks came from the west. The king paid great respect to them. And so the living Buddha, he looked like an ordinary person. He liked to eat lamb, but in the day, in the nighttime, he kind of shined with light. But otherwise, he's just like an ordinary person. So we said. So basically, what this is, the Huangdi, so the emperor, had great faith in in Buddhism, and so in the West. So Tibetan is to the West, and so it's called the West. So a monk who was in his 20s came, and the emperor paid him great respect. And they say he's the living Buddha. And basically, a living Buddha or an emanation of the Buddha, so they call him a living Buddha. And they say call him a living Buddha. But if you look at it, it's the way he looked at him, when you hear about them, he says there's really no difference between him and an ordinary person. He's probably not a Buddha, living Buddha, is what he's saying. And he liked to eat lamb, is what it says. However, it's a little bit different about him. At nighttime, light rays shine out from his body like a lamp. It's like you're lighting a lamp. He radiates light like a lamp, and so that's the only difference. Other than that, there's no difference, and that has deceived everyone and fooled everyone, he said. So he didn't write it well. He wrote in good things. He wrote bad things. He only wrote bad things, and the reason for that is, at that time in Korea was the Chaosheng, and there's a 400-year dynasty history in that, and the first king in that dynasty was Taizong. The first king, and how he became king is that. At that time, there was confusion. And he became king by respecting the Confucian tradition, and he didn't pay attention to Buddhism, and so Buddhism declined during that time. And so you were never allowed to write anything good things about Buddhism in the official documents. And so when this Korean envoy arrived in Nanjing and right there, he couldn't write that it was good. And so he said he eats meat, he's fooling everyone. But actually, he wrote the bad things, but he does describe the amazing events that happened. And so that is enough for the moment. And I will continue when we come back.